From the police state to tectonic plates, touch, sense, and tattoo take the temperature of tyranny on Freedom Frequency 1871, coming to you live now.
This is America. We have a founding fathers that wrote a constitution that we haven't lived by in 142 years.
Were they serious when they said they planned on owning the weather by 2025?
And if you're not pissed off, there's something wrong with you right now.
Have you guys seen what's going on outside your door lately? Need I remind you?
This is America. Are y'all going to allow it to be Russia? Legal means of being what they are, and the government to be a corporation. So, you know, if your government's a corporation, they're a business. They're not for you. We used to call the police, the cops, whatever you want to call them. We used to call them police officers, police. What was that one? Police policemen. Or now we call them cops, and they act bad as cops. A lot, not all of them. Some of them believe in freedom, and some of them are trained to do really terrible, bad things. Like that guy in Texas they beat to death. And he was a homeless guy. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things that are just way out there.
I can give you an example for the police becoming a corporation. And this is non-controversial. I'm not dissing this at all. This is actually, I think, a good move locally here in St. Louis. The example I'm going to give you, St. Louis, Missouri. We have a thing called St. Louis County Police, okay? And they are a private company that has gradually basically taken over the entire county region of St. Louis from north, west, and south. And they've bought out, underbid, local municipalities, police officers, offering better cars, better gear, better protection, better 24-hour service, cleaner jails that they maintain themselves, the holding cells, and they offer that service for less than what the taxpayers were normally paying for their local police service. Okay, and it also technically has cut down on corruption because each local police service was having different rules for engagement, different officials to pay off, so to speak. I don't want to say there's any kind of graft going on, but the local municipalities are much easier to manipulate than having a larger one. And so this St. Louis County Police is a corporation. It's an actual company designed to make money, and they pay the cops good, better than what they were getting paid before. That's a good example of a corporation that comes into government and is doing a service that everybody feels is needed, which is police work. But, and this is a huge but, the margin for error inside of a private corporation is huge. So you can have like a huge internal problem at the company that they might not be being taken care of, that if it was in a government organization would never be tolerated. So that's how you're getting, and this is happening all over the country. So you're getting a lot of cops that are working for private companies, even though technically they're a public officer. And they're acting like private contractors, like Blackwater would in Iraq. And that's how we're getting full-on beatdowns, killings, tasers out, 20 tasers on the ground while he's cuffed. That is for real, but it's a problem of the corporation. It's the same thing that's happening in our country and the world. And I'm a stream of consciousness on this topic too, guys. It's something that really concerns me. And so back to the censorship, right? Back to the original censorship that we're talking about with Google, with Facebook, and with Twitter, all happening simultaneously. The only explanation I can come up with for who could control all three at once, it leads us back to George Bush's New World Order When we are successful, and we will be, he says, we will forge for ourselves a new world order based upon the rule of law, quote unquote, not the rule of the jungle, quote unquote. And the rule of law.
And now we got the president that says we have the oldest constitutional democracy. Really? Does everybody know that we are Republican out here? Please tell me you do. Because that's what we are. We're not a democracy. We never were supposed to be a democracy. But yet our corporation government is a democracy. And that's the kind of new world order they want to give you, is a democracy where they can tell you that your children can't belong to you. They have to belong to the community. Do you want your children to belong to the community and them tell your children when they're right, when they're wrong, when you don't want that particular right or wrong in their head? I mean, come on, folks.
It's mob rule. It's 51% is mob rule. It's nothing more than you could even bully that final 1% over to make that choice. We elect our leaders in a democratic process. And this is where, all the people who didn't pay attention in school or just don't care don't understand. When Obama stands up there and says, we are a democracy, he is lying, he's wrong, and he's misrepresenting what our country is. Our leaders, your local representatives, your local state senate, and even your state senators are all elected in a democratic process. It could be down to one vote, okay, that gets your local leaders elected. But when they go to Washington, D.C., to this corporate government that won in the Civil War, they are supposed to still represent the whole community. And what we see happening is that the local people who are elected in a democratic process have then gone to Washington, D.C. and created their own democracy inside of Washington, D.C.'s borders, where majority rules and where you can get laws passed like what Tat's talking about here, where your kids get taken away or the state takes over the world. That's how this separate democracy, this other 51% that exists solely inside of Washington, D.C., has seized control. And we are not a democracy. We are a damn republic. And people need to get that through their heads, that we are not a democracy. If I hear it one more time from Obama, I'm going to write a personal message and send it to him. Not that it'll get read, but at least it'll be sent. I think, people need to start correcting these things when they hear it. The topics we covered, Tat, Chrissy, we got to expect that people are going to hate us, regardless of what it is. People hated me before. The censorship I met before was coming from controversy. It was hard to think about for a lot of people, right? For people to hear that their country is a company, they might not believe that. They might not want to think that they're, solely just a dollar sign to their leaders. People might not want to believe weather modification. They didn't want to believe me on quote unquote HARP rings, which turned out to be radar pulses. But whatever you want to call them, people didn't believe. The reason they don't believe is because they are still living in this world where everything has to be presented to them
by television,
right,
or social or mainstream media.
Correct. Research yourself? What? Observe yourself? What?
I don't have time for that. I'm too busy. That's what's been going on for 142 years. That's where we're at right now. Losing what little bit of freedoms that we have left. We sure don't have sovereignty no more. That's for sure.
Right.
No more sovereignty. You're supposed to be sovereign in this country. You're not supposed to be a slave. And folks, I'm sorry to tell you, but we're all slaves. And we have been for over 142 years.
Right. Anytime somebody assigned you a number without your approval, and that number assigned to you is determining everything from your status to your credit report, that number is your slave number. That number is your prison number. That's
It
the
can
best way to
become
put it. And, we are all workers in this corporation right now. Now, I'm not saying that, again, that the government is bad. Government in itself is a function that is necessary in order to rule over multiple people and to have rules that we all stick to. We have to pre-agree upon. So we'll get back into that. Callers next, guys. We'll get back after the break. We'll start taking your calls. Appreciate you hanging in there and listening to us talk.
Sweet rapture forced me from a wicked action of my device.
Welcome back to Freedom Frequency 1871. This is Dutch Sense, your host, and I still have Tattooed and Chrissy here with me, I hope.
Yes.
Good. Well, we've been having a great discussion so far just on corporations and Serco and censorship and how they all tie in together and why it's so important for all of us to come together and share the information regardless of various opposing viewpoints. Which leads me in, guys, I'm going to give out the number here. You can call in if you've got any questions, and I'm going to make one more statement before we get to the callers. But here's the number, 567-314-9296. And again, that's 567-314-9296. And before we take the callers, I just want to, just touch on something that there's a lot of networks out there on YouTube, groups of individuals that could be doing a lot of good. They could be searching out documents on weather modification or on corporation infiltration of the government, on maybe even finding some wrongdoing inside of the government. Those things are not being pursued by these groups of individuals. They're more pursuing each other, and they do it really well. Between the multiple groups, they do a real good job of finding each other's information and just really making life hard for one another. And I'm wishing that those, all those groups and people would focus on the bad stuff that's going on in the world, like this YouTube focus, which is just a waste of time to me, in my opinion. That's why I don't really go after those weird YouTube channels that are putting out the disinfo anymore. It becomes a pointless endeavor. And I'm just hoping that the people who are doing all that would start to focus on some stuff that matters and really start to come out with some rock-solid information that could change the world. But that's just my best hope on the situation. Tat and Chrissy, you guys have put out so much that could draw so much fire that, I just think that you guys have been brave in the face of complete adversity in what you've been doing so far. And I think that certain things are coming in the future that are going to be awesome. They're going to change, kind of level the playing field as to getting the message out, to beat the censorship. And we'll get more into that over the next several weeks as more information becomes available. I'm leaving you hanging on the edge of your seats, aren't I, guys? So, anything else before we go to callers? Do we have anybody on the line, first of all? Is there anybody waiting? Okay, there's nobody waiting. So if you guys want to call, we can take questions.